Hey, everybody. This is Todd Albert coming to you live. Thanks for joining us. Today, we're going to talk about the right training for your career. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. All right. So, this talk is brought to you by Boca Code and Palm Beach Tech. So I just want to talk to you briefly about each of those. Boca Code is a new code school that has just opened in Boca. We're starting off online, obviously, for some obvious reasons, and pretty soon we'll be opening our doors around August 1st and taking all kinds of precautions, which we'll tell you about. But we encourage you to join our Slack community. Go to bocacode.com, click join Slack, single click, and get plugged into our community. And if you're not already also plugged into the Palm Beach Tech community, which is literally the greatest tech community that exists, I highly recommend you join Palm Beach Tech, become a member, go to palmbeachtech.org/Slack and get involved in their Slack community. It's an incredible place and very supportive, and I cannot tell you how great a community both of these have become. So please support these communities and get involved and learn a whole bunch. So without further ado, there I am. Okay, let's get started. So the talk today is on what kind of training for your career, particularly a career in tech. And, I'm really gearing this mainly towards developers, although I'm sure a lot of these same concepts apply if you're in UX or design or other different fields as well. But really, the kind of training that you should be looking for really depends on what you're looking to get out of it, right? What specifically are you looking for? Are you like my buddy Alan and just kind of curious about coding and, maybe want to learn how to write a 5-10 line program? That's a very different than somebody who wants to break into a new career or is they're already in a career. So again, it really depends on who you are, right? Are you that first person I spoke about and you're just, more on the curiosity side, interested in programming, interested in the whole tech world, interested in UX, whatever? Or, maybe you've already started your journey. Maybe you've already taken some online courses. You've began to learn to code, you began to learn UX, and you've started teaching yourself, but you're really looking for more structure, more depth, more plug into the community, right? Maybe you're the third kind and you've already started doing some freelance work, you're building some WordPress sites for people, starting to build some and code some software, but maybe you don't feel like, an experienced advanced developer. Or maybe you already are. Maybe you already are an experienced developer and you're looking to increase your learning, to learn a new skill or to learn something further, right? So there's a lot of different ways to learn, okay? You can learn from books. When I first started, this was the only way, okay? I had a big giant manual on BASIC, and I just went through and followed the examples and then changed things and tried to make the code my own. Now there's a lot of online resources through Udemy, through Coursera, through YouTube, and a ton of others. And then there's more formal training through schools, whether this be universities or code schools or boot camps. And there's also apprenticeship programs. And these are really, really useful to find. An apprenticeship program, maybe it's formal, maybe it's informal, maybe it's a job where you just have some, mid-level and senior developers that you get to learn from and work with directly, or maybe it's more of a formal apprenticeship program like we have at Boca Code. So one of my buddies, Ryan, just posted this on LinkedIn and I loved it. He says, always optimize for learning. He's talking about a job search. Finding good mentorship and smart colleagues to learn from is the smartest way to grow your market value in the long run. And he actually posted this. On LinkedIn. The first half of the post was how for his first job, he took a lower paying job with less benefits so that he could work with a great team. And then it was followed up by this quote. And I just love that idea. And I didn't even know that because the first job he took was with me and with my team. And he was so excited to work with the team that we had. It was such a great team. And for him it was more important, and he still feels that way, that it's more important to learn from a good team and to work with smart colleagues than to get the higher paying job. And he still is working where he has great colleagues, and working on work, continuing to learn. So really, what is important to you, right? When you're setting out to learn something, what should you be focused on? And one of the things that I think is very important to look for is to strike a balance between theory and practice. I told you when I started learning from a book where it was just here's how to write an if statement, here's how to print something to the screen. There was no theory, there was no concepts of why you would do that. It was really just practice, practice, practice. It wasn't until I got into high school and into college and could take some more formal courses where I can learn some theory. And I think it's important to get a balance of these, right? Too much theory with no practice, and you don't know how to code. You understand, but you unless you practice it, it's like a language. If you don't practice, you won't be able to use it well. So in learning, a lot of times we want to maximize the speed at which we're learning. We want to maximize the complexity, right? We want to be able to learn for every different scenario. And we also want to mimic the real world as much as possible. And this is something that a lot of training programs neglect, that I've seen. And I'm not picking on all of them. There's several of them that do a really good job, and several of them that don't, mimicking that real world. So I feel that in order to really maximize all of these, you want a combination of lectures or lessons, right, to learn that theory, and then short exercises or labs to really apply that theory immediately, and then also the larger projects where you get to put a bunch of the theory and concepts together. And that tends to mimic more the real world where you're having to debug and you're having to put a lot of code together. But those short exercises are very much real world like as well. I every single day somebody asks me, "Hey, can you change this one thing?" And I have to write one line of code. And so those exercises, even though they might seem repetitive or stupid at first, that to me mimics the real world. There's also a big difference in terms of the projects, right? A lot of times these code schools take a project-based approach, and you should in your learning. Again, ideally with mix exercises and projects, but there's a big difference to me between what I call a clone project, right? Just building another tic-tac-toe app or building another to-do app versus plugging into an existing platform, right? And which is what you will do in your first job very often. They'll say, "Hey, welcome aboard. We have this giant e-commerce platform, and we want you to change this one button here." And you've got to navigate your way through hundreds of, thousands of lines of code to find where that button is and to make that one line of code change. So make sure when you're learning that you're understanding both how to start a project from beginning to end, right? Which is very important too, right? You want to be able to stand up your own website, stand up your own web project and deploy it to the web. And on the other hand, you also want to be able to be hired by a large company that already has a website and can plug into their code base and make changes. So look for that balance as well. So code schools, what are they? These are totally new things. Okay, when I was starting out, these did not exist. And depending on whose version of history you want to believe, the first code school was in somewhere between 2011 and 2014. Again, there's various there's a little bit of discrepancy there, but within the last 10 years is when code schools really began to pop up and flourish. And what are these? Well, they have typically you're learning either part time, usually in the evenings, or full time, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Some of them go at your own pace, do it whenever you want. The better ones typically, I feel, are more immersive. Um, there's different structures. You can do in person ones versus doing them online. And you should weigh these options for you, for how you want to learn and what you want to get out of it, which I'll get to in a bit. And I should mention that currently, in the midst of coronavirus, there's a lot of programs are now offering some kind of hybrid where you're doing some in person and some online. And that's something that we Boca Code is going to be starting to offer more, online. And then as quarantine starts to lift, we'll transition to hybrid, and then to in person, offering um, offering some options in between for and maximizing the amount of space between students. We're going to limit enrollment when we open and so forth. um, Ickle666 asked, what do I feel about IronHack? If you search for the best code schools in the world, IronHack almost consistently comes out in the top five. I've interviewed students from dozens of different code schools, and the students that I've interviewed from IronHack are typically some of the most prepared students. They do a really good job at IronHack. It's I have the utmost respect for what they do there at IronHack, and it's as Boca Code begins to offer more and more classes, we are trying to model a lot of what we do after IronHack. They are top notch. We're trying to, of course, we're a new business, so we're trying to do things a little differently and new. So we hope that you could see some advantages to Boca Code when you shop for a code school. But I have literally nothing negative to say about IronHack, except for that it's super far away if I had to drive down there every day. But I have some really good friends that work there. I've met some incredible people from there. I've hired some incredible people from there, and really excellent school. I think they're in 9 cities across the world. Our closest one is in Miami, and I have a lot of personal relations down there, and really love what they're doing. So hopefully that answered your question, Ickle666. So code schools are not cheap. In From one perspective, it may seem expensive. Code schools typically range in the 9,000 to about $16,500 for a either 10 to 12 week full time or 20 to 26 week part time course, depending on the school. But there are a lot of financial options available. In fact, very few students would actually have to pay the full price if they play their cards right. So there are oftentimes scholarships available, sometimes private scholarships, sometimes through the school itself. We are partnering with Palm Beach Tech to offer a scholarship and allow companies to donate to that scholarship. And our students will actually work on real world projects, which is very cool for those companies. The school will also have its own scholarships, need and merit based. There's loans available. Some schools have loans available through and financing available through the school, but there's also private institutions that offer loans, some specifically just for these types of programs. Many people get help and assistance from family, and as you're going to see coming up in a couple of slides, most people who go through code school end up making significantly more money afterwards. So being able to pay family back, and sometimes parents and so forth will say, oh, 10,000 or so dollars is very, very small price to pay for my son or daughter to make significantly more money for the rest of their life potentially. So family is also often a good resource. Some companies offer corporate sponsorship where you can, sometimes you have to guarantee that you're going to work for that company for maybe 2 years, but it's also good because you're guaranteed a job when you finish code school. And there's a lot of money through government. So whether this is through programs for veterans or programs for the unemployed or underemployed or training programs, there's a lot of money available. So we work with students to help find some of that money and make sure that you're not tremendously financially burdened by going to code school. So and all the good code schools will offer this as well. So is it worth it, right? Should I shell out 10, 15 grand on a code school? Well, 83% of code school grads find jobs in their field, right? Within the first, I think this is within the first 9 months. The average bump in salary, the average median increase in salary is 51%. So in other words, if you're making 40K, you go to code school, you're typically going to be making more like 60K when you get out. In fact, the average salary boost from before to after code school is 22,000. And what's great is this is just a start, right? So I go to code school, I'm making 22K more a year on average when I get out. But that's starting, right? So if you're in, I meet a lot of teachers, for example, that go to code school. They're in a job in Florida. If you're a teacher, maybe you're making 45K a year, and when you retire, maybe you're going to be making 55K. Well, you go to code school, you're making somewhere on the order of 60K a year, and that continues to go up year after year. So a typical code school grad can expect around an 11% increase year over year for the first several years. So very often, you meet a code school grad, and by their third, fourth, or fifth year, they're often 1 or 2 jobs in to their career, and now they're making 90K or into 6 figures. So one of the first code school graduates I ever hired, he worked with me for over a year, got another job. He was probably making on the order of 60-ish K. I don't want to reveal his salary. I think in his next job, he was making, in the 90K range. And a couple of years later, he's in his third job and he's making solid 6 figures. So this is something that not all careers offer, right? Is that steady income growth and income potential. I also have a student who took 1 coding class from me, went on to become an app developer, started his own agency, and now he runs $1 million software agency, right? So your potential here is kind of limitless. In South Florida, there's over 150,000 tech jobs now. 64,000 of them have been posted in the last year, not meaning these are new, meaning that they've been hiring. There's constantly jobs listed and being hired. Of those jobs, over 17,500 of them are new this year. Software developer jobs, 17,500 new software developer jobs just in South Florida this year. So the demand is there, the salary is there, right? And these are some of the benefits, right? There's a high demand for programmers in South Florida. Their starting salary is very high. You have a ton of different career options. And these offer much more advanced curriculum than a lot of other training programs. I switched, when I was in college, I went back and forth between majoring in computer science. And, I knew it was something I really wanted to do, so I'd switch my major. And then the education, the programs that they offered were just so slow. And you had to take class after class after class, and it just didn't move at the pace that I wanted to. Whereas a boot camp, you're getting most of that same level of education condensed into a couple of months instead of over several years. And it's really incredible. And it allows you to quickly get into the community, and start having an actual impact on the tech community. And even if you don't love it, you're learning skills that you can apply in other careers. Some people, they go through, they learn to code, and they start out and they realize, this just isn't for me. And then they go into other roles as product owner or project manager, or these other roles in where they're networking with the developers, they're talking to the developers, they're helping translate between upper management and the development team. And it really is a good skill to have and apply in other careers as well. Code schools typically don't just train you on how to write software and how to code and the theory and the practice, but they also provide you a lot of soft skills that are needed for the job search and for interviewing and resume writing and just, working together with people in this career. So there's a lot of soft skills, even though the number one hard skill that's missing in South Florida and in Florida in general is the coding, and you learn that in a code school. A big thing that separates the good code schools from the average, like I was saying with Ironhack and Boca Code, they really prepare you for the job market, they plug you into the community, they teach you the skills to work with others and network and interview and prepare your resume and so forth. And good code schools will offer job placement services. Some have a limit on how long they will help you find a job. I had some friends, unfortunately, that attended a code school that used to be in South Florida that recently pulled out, and their job, they were still waiting for jobs, still using those job placement services, and they vaporized. So make sure that you're working with a school that has a good track record and is plugged into the local, the local job market, right? Like your burrito in Miami at Ironhack, he is plugged into the local community. You have up here in Palm Beach County, we're fortunate to have Palm Beach Tech, which is now spreading across South Florida. So we have an incredible network here. And speaking of job placement services, I just want to plug again, everyone is welcome to join our Slack at bocacode.com. Click join Slack and become a part of our Slack community. We post jobs, and today at 3 p.m., just in less than 2 hours, we're hosting a virtual hiring party. We're going to have 5 or 6 companies that have a ton of different jobs in different sectors at different levels, and they're going to be describing those jobs and how to apply. So come join that party. It's totally free. You can find out more. We'll post a link in the comments of this video, not in the chat, but once the video is posted, we'll post it, or I'm sure somebody will post it in the chat as well. But I'll make sure to post it in the comments of this video. So please join us at 3 p.m. today. Just check it out, right? So we're really trying to help out the community, help connect, companies like City Furniture that are hiring 15 positions right now with all the people in the tech community that, maybe just finished code school or just got furloughed. And some code schools also offer continuing education. So Boca Code has already, in fact, today we're announcing 3 of our what we call level up courses. And so the idea is, maybe you're already a programmer, but maybe you're a .NET programmer or PHP, or maybe you learned Ruby at your code school, but you really want to learn Node, or you really want to learn React, or you want to become a unicorn and learn UX. So we're going to be announcing today 3 new level up programs. The end of June, we're going to be offering a week-long course on Node, a week-long course on React, and then in September, early September, we're going to be offering a week-long crash course on UX. So you don't have to go through a whole code school to learn JavaScript. You can go through 2 weeks and learn front end and back end. You don't have to go through a whole code school to learn UX. You can go through a week-long crash course and add that tool to your belt. And a good code school also provides a support network. This is something I hear people talk about Ironhack all the time. They say, yeah, I learned a lot, but it was the people I met. These are lifelong friends. This is a lifelong connection that I met. And so that's really important, is make sure you have a good support network. So, like I said, when you go out in your first job or second job or third job, you have a network that you can lean back on and say, hey guys, I'm stuck on something. I suddenly have to create Java web tokens, and I'm JavaScript web tokens. I've never done that. How do I do it? Or I can't figure out what's wrong with this piece of code. And you have that network, that safety net, right? That we will offer. So what about existing developers, right? So I kind of intimated that even if you're already an existing developer, you're already working as a professional programmer, right? Code schools can offer you benefits as well. You can update your skill set, right? Maybe you're a .NET programmer, but you realize in South Florida that 80% ish of the jobs are for looking for Node and React, right? So you want to update your skill set. You want to learn at a quick, accelerated pace, something that you can't get maybe on your own or through a college or something like that. Also, a new network to plug into, give a boost to your resume, and you can really reinvigorate that passion for coding when you learn something new or learn in a new way. So there's nothing more exciting than learning a new language. I was, for the longest time, dead set on PHP as a backend language. I was the PHP guy, and then I discovered Laravel, and then I became the Laravel guy. And every time you learn a new technology, it can be really exciting. And in the past several years, I've been almost exclusively using React and JavaScript, Node, and as well as Python. So Python, and JavaScript weren't new to me, but I've really rediscovered my passion for those languages in the last few years and use them extensively. Occasionally I miss PHP, don't often miss .NET, but I also do a lot of C#, which is .NET-ish through the game development that I do, which we're also going to be in August and December offering these level up courses on game development, which I also welcome people to sign up for. Our December course is already, we already have a lot of slots reserved, so make sure to sign up for that fast. And the one question, I've been kind of really pushing the idea of code school, but it might not be the right fit for everyone. So this, I think, is really important, is to ask yourself if a code school is right for you. If some of the things I said, like, oh, the accelerated pace of learning, for some of you listening might be like, whoa, yes, lay it on. And others are like, whoa, that's too, I don't want to go too fast. You have to be ready for an intense intellectual challenge. You have to be ready for that fast pace and that pressure. The most successful code school students tend to have already done a little bit of coding, maybe taken an online class or two. Those are the ones, they tend to be more successful, and on average tend to make 15K more in their first year out of code school. So really not a waste of time to take one or two classes before you jump into code school, and really realize like, okay, I'm ready for that accelerated pace. You have to be committed to learning code, right? You can't jump into a 10-week program, maybe a 1-week program, but certainly not a 10 or 12-week program and not be committed, right? You have to like learning and working with others, because that's a big part of what we teach in these code schools, is peer programming, working with your peers, working in teams, working together. So if that does sound exciting and you start looking at code schools, understand, and I think I've also hinted at this, that not all code schools are created equal, right? Like, like I said, Iron Hack has very few equals in this world. It is a top-notch program. So you really want to make sure you know what you're getting into. And, having been somebody who's interviewed people from various schools, I can really tell you that there's a marked difference in the level of preparation from students from one school to the next to the next. And so talk to people and find out what their impressions are of those schools. Not necessarily the people who went through them, because the people who went through them, they're it's to their benefit to tell you the school was awesome, right? The better the reputation the school has, the better it is, the better that line on their resume looks. So they're a little bit biased. Everyone's going to think the school not everyone. I've talked to plenty of people that were dissatisfied, but for the most part, people will tell you their school was the best school because they also want to think they made the right decision. But talk to people who maybe are outside or have hired people from those or worked with them. And with that, if anybody has any questions, please drop them in the chat, in the comments. I want to thank Palm Beach Tech for sponsoring this video, and once again, just call you to go to bocacode.com, join our Slack channel, go to palmbeachtech.org/Slack and join their Slack channel as well. And thank you guys so much for joining me today. And I hope you learned something, and I hope you have a great day.